First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mahaswamiji Shankara Bharata for having given this opportunity to come here and share my views on the Ayurvedic perspective on birth, rebirth, and reincarnation. So my topic for discussion today is Punarbhava and Paralokesana, how Ayurveda looks at continuity of life after death. Now, Ayurveda being a health science, in fact, though it is a health science, Ayurveda is focused on life. As the very word Ayurveda indicates, it is Ayusho Vedam. It is not just dealing with just health or illness, but of life as a whole. So Ayurveda is very much focused on the whole process of life, right from birth. Rityatra janma maranam yada samyak udahridam sharirasya tatasthanam shariramidam uchyate. There is a section called Sharirasthana in Ayurveda, which is not just anatomy or physiology, but the whole story of life. It begins with Srishti Vikasa Krama. In Ayurveda, students study by first looking at how birth happens, not by dissecting a dead body. We are not looking at dead body, but looking at how life manifests, how from the Srishti, the Vyashti is emerging, and how that journey happens until the point of death, and then what also happens after. If you look at the word Ayus, Ayus is coming from the root Ingatau, which means that which goes away. So in one way we can say Ayus also indicates death. So life and death are just two sides of the same coin. Today I would like to focus on a section of the Charaka Samhita, one particular chapter in which this debate about rebirth is taken so systematically. There is a chapter in the Charaka Samhita, Sutra Sthana, called Tisseshraniyam, where the goals of life have been discussed. 3 Eshanas, Praneshana, Dhaneshana, and then Paralokesana. So it is in the context of Paralokesana that Charaka Samhita is bringing up this debate. Actually, we can see that Ayurveda is, in my understanding, a good blend of science and spirituality. I mean, Ayurveda is in that, that bhumika where science and spirituality meet together. So, only 3 are discussed. Prana. Praneshana. So, Atha Tridiyam, first is Praneshana, then Dhaneshana, and then Paralokesana. So, Putreshana and all that comes in within Paralokesana itself. So, Atha Tridiyam Paralokeshanam apadyade samshayastatra katham bhavishyama itaschutanaveti kutapuna samshayati uchyade santi hege pratyakshapara parokshatvat punarbhavasya nastikyam ashrita sandhi agama pratyayadeva punarbhavam icchandi shruti bhedacha Madaram Pidaram Chege Manyande Janma Karanam Subhavam Paranirmanam Vidrucham Chapare Jana iti Ata Samshya Kim Nu Khalu Asti Punarbhavo Naveti. So Charaka is trying to give a demonstration or proof. I mean, this is very interesting because in Ayurveda he asks the question, can we really have a proof of Punarjanma? And what are the ways in which we can prove that there is really Punarjanma? So here also Charaka is taking up the various alternative views, the views, the Purva Pakshas of, the Nastikya versions which are against the Punarbhava. But at the very outset, the text makes a very radical statement saying that Tatra Buddhiman Nastikya Buddhim Jahyad Vichikitsam cha Kasmad Pratyaksham Hyalpam Analpam Apratyksham Asti Yada Agama Anumana Yukti Bhirupalabhyade Yaireva Tavad Indriye Pratyaksham Upalabhyade Tanyeva Santi cha Apratykshani. So this is very, very important. Ayurveda clearly mentions that Punarjanma is not something which can be studied experimentally. It cannot be proven experimentally, because experiment is all about studying things that are under our control. So we are trying to live superior lives in an inferior world. Only what is controlled by us, under controlled conditions, we can prove by experiment. Now Punarjanma is something which we cannot bring it into an experimental design. So he says just give up the idea of trying to prove it through pratyaksha. But there are other pramanas through which, even through pratyaksha, we can infer it, but you cannot actually see. So that actually, the limitations of pratyaksha are then discussed. Satam cha rupanam atisannigarshad ativipragarshad avaranat karana daurbalyad manonavasthanat samanabhiharad abhibhavad atisaukshmyat cha pratyaksha anupalabdhi tasmad aparikshitametad uchyate pratyakshameva asti nanyad asthidi. So in order to prove the existence of Punarjanma, at first the Acharya is clarifying that everything in the world, not only Punarjanma, so many things we can never know. Ram Subramanian ji was also just mentioning about counting, the number of cells. I'm also reminded of an estimate of the total number of species. 84 lakh yonis as mentioned in the yogic tradition. Just some years ago, modern scientists came with an estimate of 8.7 million species, which is so close to the 84 lakhs. And all these are, estimates. They are not actually counted. So Ayurveda very clearly says that don't take the wrong direction in trying to study about Punarjanma. You are not going to experimentally prove it. But then what are the ways in which you can establish that it really exists? So there is a very beautiful verse in Ashtanga Hridayam, Shuddhe, how this Punarjanma happens, how the jiva enters into a physical body. Shuddhe Shukrartave Sattva Swakarma Klesha Chodida Garbha Sampadyade Yukti Vashad Agnirivaranau Tejo Yatharka Reshmi Nam Spadigena Tiraskridam Nendhanam Drishyade Gachat Sattva Garbhashayam Tatha. So it is just like when the two aranis are, the two wooden pieces are struck together, the spark comes. In a similar way, when Shukra Shonida Samyoga happens, that spurana of jiva, enters into the the conceived egg. And another example that is given is that just like when a spatika, you put a spatika in front of the sun, and the sun rays move through this spatika, and it burns an object in front of it. You don't see actually that sun rays passing through. So it is not possible to see this sankramana of the jiva from one sharira to the other, but it is possible to infer it. There are other circumstantial evidences that we can generate on the basis of which we can establish that there is Puna. So next, there are various theories that are refuted. There is one theory that the jiva is nothing but transmitted from the mother and the father. So that is refuted first. If the mother and the father, they are two independent individuals, how can their consciousness divide and come into the child? It is not, feasible. Another theory is that the self is not just the mind and intellect. The self cannot be just the mind and intellect, because even in lower life forms, where the intellect is not so manifest, the Chaturvida yonis are there. We cannot accept the Chaturvida yonis if we say that the self is nothing but the mind and intellect. Another theory that is being refuted is the Yadrichavada. Vidyat swabhavigam sharnam dhatunam yatsa lakshanam samyoge cha viyoge cha tesham karmeva karanam. Also the another theory that is refuted here is a theory of paranirmiti, because consciousness is self-existent, and so we cannot accept the theory that it has been created. So Charaka Samhita very clearly points out that this nihilistic position is irrational. Na pariksha, na parikshyam, na karta, karanam na cha, na deva, narshaya siddha, karma, karma bhalam na cha, nastigasyasti naivatma, yadricho bhagadatmana, Padagebhya param chaidat padagam nastika graha tasman matim vimuchedam amarga prasridam buddha sadam buddhi pradipena pashyat sarvam yathatatam. So here the basic argument that is made is that we know that science is possible because of cause and effect relationship. So only when it comes to human life and its activities, we are saying that everything is yadricha. So this is not correct. Like medical science is possible because there is hetu, linga and aushadha. If there is a disease, we find the cause, we give the medicine, it will be resolved. But when it comes to complex human life, why are we not able to accept the same cause and effect relationship? Why are we attributing yadricha only there? So this is the Nastikya position. It is actually a theory of convenience. So that yadricha vada is very strongly refuted by Charaka. And he says that, so this is where I think I've been very much influenced by Adi Shankara's teachings, some of his sayings and commentaries, which gives us a very good platform for linking science and spirituality together. Because this is a challenge that we face in Ayurveda. Because we are dealing with the world here, we are dealing with vyavahara, and where the scientific discourse is very, very essential. When we are treating a patient, we need to make sure that the medicine really works. What is the evidence? All these things comes. But on the other hand, Ayurveda also engages in the higher aspects of the human personality, like the mind, self. So at every moment of engagement in Ayurveda, we have to bring science and spirituality together without, a conflict. And here, I think what I found very insightful from Adi Shankara's teachings is the way he reconciles two. For example, he goes to the extent of also saying, Nacha pratyaksha virodhe shrute pramanyam. Nahi shruti shatamapi shitognir apragacha idi bruvad pramanyam labhate. So Shrutischa atindriyartha vishaye pramanam. So Ayurvedic Vangmayam also can be divided into three segments. One is the Tarkya Vishayam, that is also there. Everything in Ayurveda is not Pramana. Charaka says in some places, Adaparam Tarkyameva. But some other parts are actually, Pramana Bhuta Drishyam. This is verifiable through Pratyaksha. But there is also another segment in Ayurveda which is Atindriyam, which cannot be proven by the Pratyaksha Pramana but can be understood by higher Pramanas and also by practice of yoga and meditation. So Ayurveda knowledge has these three, divisions. And distinguishing these three is very, very important for us to bring Ayurveda as a complete knowledge system today. What is the Tarkya element, what is the Drishya element, and what is the Atindriya element. And when we look at Punarjanma, the texts are very clear that this is Atindriyam. And so Shruti is the Pramana here. And we can only support that with Pratyaksha and other Pramanas. We have to go by Shruti. So Dvidhameva khalu sarvam satya asatya tasya chadurvidha pariksha aptobadesha pratyaksham anumanam yuktischedi esha pariksha nastyanya yaya sarvam parikshade pariksham sadasachaivam taya chasti punardhava. The next portion of the text is all about how we are able to prove that Punarjanma exists through all the four Pramanas. Dharmadvara vahitaischa vyapagada bhaya raga dvesha lobha moha maneir brahma parair aptai karma vidbhir anupahada sattva buddhi prajarei purvatarair maharshibhir divya chakshurbhir drishtu upadeshta punarbhava idi vyavasyed evam. So the reason why Ayurveda accepts Punarbhava is that it comes from people. There is a definition of aptas. Rajastamobhyam nirmuktaha tapotjnana balenaye yesham trikalam amalam jnanam avyahadam tada apta shishta vibuddhaste tesham vakyam asamshayam. Satyam vakshyandi te kasmad asatyam nirajastama. So this is the reason why in Ayurveda, certain types of knowledge is accepted purely on the basis of Agama. Where it is Atindriya and where the Vakta is a Nirajasthama. In those conditions alone we can accept Aptagama as a Pramana. And from that way, but here it's interesting that even though the text says that Aptagam, I mean, we have to accept Punarjanma on the basis of Aptagama. He still goes on to verify it also through Pratyaksha, Anumana and Yukti, because the text wants to point out that what is received through Aptagama is not in contradiction what we can also observe through Pratyaksha. Although we don't get the primary data of or evidence from Pratyaksha, Anumana and Yukti, but they are also supporting this finding, this Upadesha from the Aptas. So pratyaksham abhi chobalabhyade mata pitror visadrishanya apatnyani. He gives a lot of observations where he points out that we cannot explain many things without accepting Punarjanma, even if you look at it in Pratyaksha. Mata pitror visadrishanya apatyani. From the same parents, you have children who are totally different. Tulya sambhavanam varnaswaragradi sattva buddhi bhagya visheshaha. So even if coming from the same lineage, same family, so much of differences. Pravaravara kula janma. Some people are born in rich families, some in poor families. So even if modern science were to look at cause and effect relationships, this kind of randomness cannot be explained. Dasya Ishwaryam, some people are serving, some people are, controlling. Sukha Sukhamayu. Life is not the same for everyone, given all the similar conditions. Ayusho Vaishamyam. Iha Kradasya Avapti. Even in this birth, when you do a karma, you are sometimes getting the result in the same birth itself. Ashikshidanam cha rudita stanapana hasatrasadinam pravritti. By instinct, we already know so many things. We are learning so many things and expressing it without, prior learning. So that instinct is one thing. Lakshanotpatti. You can see in the body so many lakshanas that are remnants of, experiences in the past lives. There is a whole Lakshana Shastra for Karma Sadrishya Phala Vishesha. Two people are doing the same action, but they are getting two different results. Metha Kvachit Karmanya Metha. In some areas we have talent, inborn talent. In some others, even if we put a lot of effort, we are not able to perform. So it's a very exhaustive list to point out that we carry something from the past. But one thing Ayurveda says is the real proof, pratyaksha proof, is jati smaranam. That given the right conditions, you will be able to remember your past lives and you will be able to verify it. That is, according to Ayurveda, the real proof. So yesterday we had interesting sessions on past life regression. And this Jati Smaranam is from Pratyaksha point of view. All other things are indirect, but Jati Smaranam is the direct. This can happen accidentally in normal individuals, but consciously in yogis. If you practice yoga and when you reach a certain stage of mental maturity, all the previous lives are revealed. And so that is the point of that is the only way you can actually prove it. And then, Atayeva Anumiyate Swakritam Apariharyam Avinashi Paur. So carrying this argument from Pratyaksha, we are going to Anumana. Yat Swakritam Apariharyam Avinashi Paurvadehikam Daiva Samchakam Anubandhikam Karma Tasya Edat Phalam Itas Chanyat Bhavishyati iti Phalad Bijam Anumiyade Phalam cha Bijad. So once you look at this contradiction given by Pratyaksha Pramana about all this randomness, once you bring in the idea of Bhala, Bija, everything becomes meaningful. So Anumana Pramana and Yukti Pramana is seeing multiple factors together. Buddhi Pashyati Ya Bhavan Bahukarana Yogajan Yuktistragala Satnya. So if you were to apply Yukti Pramana also, you can see Kartrikarana Samyogat Kriya, Kritasya Karmana Phalam Nagritasya, Nangurotpatti Rabijat, Karma Sadrisham Phalam, Nanyasmat Bijat, Anyasya Utpatti. So if you look at the whole physical universe, everything is happening according to these laws and rules. Nothing is happening randomly. So if you bring that into a macro complex perspective, and we analyze human actions and the results also very carefully, then you can see that there also this karma bhala, karya karana sambandha is following. So in this way, evam pramanais chadurbhir upadishte punardhave dharmadvareshu avadhiyate tadyatha Guru Shushrushaya, Madhyayane, Vratacharyayam, Dharakriyaya. This is the point that Ramana Subramanianji was earlier just mentioning. That so, right from the Gurukula Vidyabhyasa, inculcate this idea into the younger generation so that they develop this dharma, they get established in this dharmic way of life, that they apply this understanding in all their actions, that all actions have consequences and that we are alone responsible. As Charaka says, Atmanam eva manyeda kartaram sukha dukkhayo tasmat shreyaskaram margam pratipadyeda natrased. There is no need to fear, because the results of all our actions are dependent on our own choice, and so take the right choice. So this is what Ayurveda says. Now, this very idea of Anubandha is ingrained in the Ayurvedic definition of life itself. Sharirendriya sattvatma samyogo dhari jivitam nityagascha anubandhascha paryayir ayuruchyate. So for lack of time, I will just move a little fast here, just highlighting the key points. One of the paryayas of Ayus is Anubandha. Anubandha means continuity. That this Ayus is a samyoga, and actually looking, this samyoga is so delicate. The impossible have combined together. Atma, Manas, they are all Visadrishas. Completely Visadrisha Ghadakas have combined together. And that is why a lot of effort is needed to keep them together. So we have the term Dhari. The samyogo dharyate iti dhari. So, Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam. This samyoga is so delicate that at a slightest disturbance, the viyoga will happen. So it is with great effort, dharana, jivana, but in spite of that, it is nityaga. It is continuously disintegrating and going away. But because of the karma bija, the anubandha of life continues. So in Ayurveda, it is very clearly said, Bhutais chadurbhis sahitais sukshmair manojavo devaham upaiti dehad karmatmagatvat natu tasya drishyam divyam vina darshanam asti rupam. So this is the only thing we cannot see. We cannot experimentally prove that the individual is moving from one body to the other. That is not physically visible. But through all the signs and lakshanas, we can clearly infer that this transmission has happened. And what is interesting, adindriyaisthair atisukshma rupair atma kadachinna viyukta rupaha na karmana naiva manomadibhyam na chapya hankara vikhara doshai. Ayurveda also says that it is not the atma that is moving, because the atma is, sarva vyapi. And it is always inherent in everything. So what is moving? It is only the mind getting displaced. So once you disconnect from the body, the sukshma sharira is the manas. So it is a manas that is moving, and it can get displaced in time or space anywhere, because it is beyond time and space now. So, and Ayurveda also does not believe in ghosts or, because you cannot exist. You exist only in the manoloka after you are dead. And from the manoloka, you are displaced to another physical body according to your karma. So, the last points I would like to mention is that Ayurveda has been created for karma purusha. It is coming from this Vedic knowledge of, the whole samsarana. And how we can help the karma purusha. That is the purpose of Ayurveda. It is not a medical system in that sense. It is a moksha shastra. Ayurveda, the goal of Ayurveda is amritatvam, which Charaka clearly says is by getting shuddhi, manashuddhi. It is not through any other way. We have in Ayurveda a branch called rasayana, but even with rasayana, if you live 1,000 years, you still have to die. So that is not amritatvam. Amritatvam is Amridam Brahma Nirvanam Paryayai Shanti Ruchyate. So that is the highest state. So Ayurveda is also teaching the Karma Purusha how to reach that Amritatvam. That is the goal of Ayurveda. Sapuman Chedanam Tacha Adhigaranam Matam Vedasyasya Yadartho Hi Vedoyam Samprakashita. So in this context, when Charaka Samhita tells the purpose of Ayurveda, he does not even use the word Ayurveda. He uses the word Veda itself. Vedasyasya Yadhartohi Vedoyam Samprakashita. So the Samhita is very clearly saying that this Ayurveda is basically, the Panchamo Veda. It is the coming down of the Vedas to the Karma Purusha is entangled in so much of karma that he is not able to release himself. So there is I see my time is almost over, but there are a few more points I would like to highlight. One of the applications of this Karma Siddhanta is in the treatment of diseases, both in the prevention of disease as well as in the treatment of existing diseases, as well as planning for your future life. This is the importance of Ayurveda. Because of this Karma Bhala and Punarjanma Siddhanta, Ayurveda says we should live our life. And Ayurveda is very, very realistic here. It does not tell you that you will get moksha in one life. It very clearly tells you how to plan for another, maybe several lives. So live your present life also to secure your future life. That is Paralokesana. So Drishtaparadhaja kaschit purvaparadhaja tat sangarat bhavatyanyo vyadhirevam tridhasmita. So some diseases, I think this is true even today. When we are treating patients, we know that some diseases we have no explanation why it has happened. Yatha nidanam doshotha. When you can see, even today this classification is very relevant. When patients come to us, you can find out. In many cases, we cannot even know the causes. But in some cases, it's very clear. This is the cause, this is the result. That type of disease is called doshaja vyadhi. Karmajo hetubhirvira. When it is a karmaja disease, so there's a criteria. Today we can actually apply. We are using it in our clinical practice. When we find we are not able to find any reason, any cause why that patient should be sick, then that is a karmaja vyadhi. So there are protocols on how to identify karmaja vyadhi. One is by analyzing the hetu. The other is kriyaghna karmaja roga. Whatever treatment you give, it is the best treatment for that disease, but it will not work. Logically, it should work, but it will not work. So, if it is a kriyaghana roga, or if the hetu is not traceable, these are two situations where we infer that could be a karmaja roga. Maharambho alpage heta vakatango dosha karmaja. Some diseases are a combination, dosha karmaja, where with a slight hetu you will get a very severe disease. One person smokes for a few times, he gets lung cancer. Another person smokes his whole life and he doesn't get any cancer. So we cannot explain all this just by using modern scientific theory. After 20-30 years of epidemiological study, they have found that smoking really has an association with lung cancer. But still they do not know why non-smokers get lung cancer and why all smokers do not get lung cancer. But Ayurveda has very clearly explained that here, without factoring in karma, you cannot. They may have been a smoker in a previous birth, who knows? So, when it comes to preventing disease, Ayurveda says these are very important things today. We are also in prevention. Agnivesha keeps asking the question to Charaka. I have seen people following all the preventive measures and still they are getting sick. Today also we cannot explain why and how this is happening. Even all the efforts of modern medicine to find a foolproof way to remain healthy without disease fails. So here Ayurveda says atharva vihita shanti pratikula graharchana as a preventive measure. Identify your karma and nullify it. Because Vagbhata tells us very, very clearly, artheshva labheshva agrita prayatnam kritadaram nityam upaya vatsu jitendriyam nanu tapandi rogas tatkala yuktam yadi nasti daivam. So he is giving a disclaimer there. You do all these things. Artheshva labhya, you are following the perfect life, but still there is no guarantee that you will not get disease, only if Daivam is not there. If Daivam is not there, you will not get disease. So you need both. So this is the application. By bringing in the Punarjanma Siddhanta here, Ayurveda brings it to actual public health application by saying that you should also be compensating your past life actions as you do preventive measures in your present life. Then only you can remain without disease. Now, another important part, and Ayurveda is very, very positive here. Daivam pura yat kridam uchyade tat paurusham yat viha karma drashtam bali purushakaro hi daivam apyati vartate. So the whole idea is that you have your present life to overpower your Daivam. Don't worry about what has happened in the past. You have to look at the Bala of the Purushakara and the Daivam. And with your Bali Purushakara, overpower the Daivam and eventually get into that higher state of Amritatum. This is the goal of Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is thereby is actually bringing to the common man the whole vision of the Vedas. The Charaka Samhita begins with Bheshaja Chatushka. I always wondered why in the first chapter there is Bheshaja Chatushka, not Swastha Chatushka. After Bheshaja Chatushka is Swastha Chatushka. Because Ayurveda is for Atanga Panga Magnanam Hastalambo Bhishakchidam. It is for the sick people to bring them back first to the state of balance and then take them to the higher level of So Daivam Purushakarena Durbalam Hyupahanyate, Daivena Chetarat Karma Vishishtena Upahanyate, Drishtva Yadege Manyande, Niyatam Manam Ayusha. The last point I would like to say, I know I followed taken a little bit more time, is the concept of Kala Mrityu and Akala Mrityu. Evam cha Dvividho Mrityu, Kala Kala Vibhedada, Akala Mrityu Apariharaya iva Hitahita, Akala Mrityu Pariharaya iva Hitahita Upadesha. So the goal is to live a life in which you are compensating your past actions and eventually making sure you get Kala Mrityu. Because a Kala Mrityu is Deha Tyagaha. It is not Marana. You are voluntarily, there was a lot of discussion on Swechaya Deha Samyoga. But Swechaya Deha Yoga is also possible. And that is what Ayurveda says, dying the Ayurvedic way. Kala Mrityu, receiving, accepting death. The body, so there is a poet who said, "O death, where are thy stings that the seers have seen in thee?" Death is not like Yama. You can also picturize death as a mother coming slowly and making a child go to sleep. So death can also be a peaceful exit from this life. And that is how Ayurveda says, that is Kala Mrityu. Ekottaram Mrityu Shatam Bruvade Vedavadina Tatra Ega Kala Samyukta. Sheshastwaganda Vasmrda. There is only one natural way of dying, and that is a peaceful way of dying. Just like sunrise is profound, the sunrise of birth is profound, the sunset of death is also equally profound and a meditative experience. So Ayurveda invites us to live a life so that we discard our bodies like yogis and not, be taken away by death. So Ayurveda has discussed about rebirth in a systematic way. Ayurveda clearly tells us that we cannot get directive, objective proof with Kirlian photography or whatever new technologies are coming. We cannot capture the self moving from one body to the other. It is happening at a mental plane. It is beyond the physical. That is very clearly mentioned. But we can get inferences, and when we put the rebirth theory, so many puzzles get solved. So many contradictions are resolved. And the patient is a karma purusha, and diseases are caused by karma and dosha. Rational treatments are not always successful. And we have to include measures to compensate karma. Now there are new researches happening in the field of intention, healing, prayers. They are all beginning to show, that such effects exist. So measures to prevent and cure disease should include actions to compensate for past actions, and we have to keep the future life in mind while living in the present. So once again, I would like to thank Swamiji for this opportunity and blessing to be present here and share my views on how Ayurveda looks at rebirth. Thank you.